Hi there. You're listening to the Everglade Chronicles, a reading. I'm Garrett Shave, the author. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I will be reading Chapter 2, Welcome Home. Just a heads up, this chapter is quite short. Now, let's get into it. The chief administrator was working on paperwork when we strolled under his slide. He was also drinking an apple juice box and munching on a pear. Her Grace, the Duchess of Sunset, Nova was quick to say. Your Radiance, Lord Isaac replied, not moving to stand up or even make eye contact. Madison seemed to ignore this stab of insubordination. Again, he was wearing his red bathrobe. I assumed it was some kind of uniform for his office. I am so glad you have arrived. I have some news for you and your little friend. Do tell, Madison said quietly. Theo, the Lord looked directly at me. The Emperor has given great consideration to your case, and after examining your rich heritage and bloodline has decided to give you a place in his aristocracy. Excellent news, I smiled. Am I to be a duke? A prince? Nay, none of those. The Lord laughed. Just a lord. A lord of what? I asked, shocked. Cloverleaf. He merely replied, You're in luck. Cloverleaf is one of the last few places that actually has land. I suppose that is a start, I mumbled. After all, a lord was something. It might not be as grand as a duke or a prince, but it was something. I know the area well, Madison said, her eyes narrowing. How grateful of our humble majesty. Mustn't he declare an oath of fealty, being a new lord? Nova inquired. I was just getting to that, the chief admin remarked, placing his pen aside. I have arranged for one of the Elite Four to come and receive your oath this evening. The Elite Four? I asked, confused. Like from Pokemon? The Lord gave a sharp look at the Duchess. Please tell me you have told him about the Elite Four. My goodness, Your Grace. This has nothing to do with video games. I shall prep him later on the Elite Four. I will not bore all of us here with the tale right now, she replied. Good, Isaac said, his voice like ice. Ensure that you do. Am I not to go before the Emperor myself? I asked. Isn't that how the people did it in medieval Europe? Perhaps in the old days, Theo, but not anymore. The Emperor barely troubles himself with these trivial things, Madison remarked. I do not think adding a new noble to your roster is considered trivial, I mumbled sadly. We have no further business, Isaac nearly hissed. You may leave now. After the hostile exchange, we strolled along the asphalt path a little longer. Around the bend we passed a small wooded area, revealing a narrow bridge. Cloverleaf Bridge, I said, remembering. Is my lordship just beyond there? Madison sighed. Yes, and it isn't very big. I have a feeling the Emperor does not like you, for Cloverleaf is but a speck. It's not even considered part of the meadow. The entirety of the land is walking path, fences, and a small bit of earth facing the lake. My heart sank. This tiny little speck was bestowed upon seemingly royal Walker blood? The Emperor is playing a dangerous game if he thinks he can mess with me, I remarked coldly. Neither of the girls replied as we crossed to the long bridge. When we arrived, I knew Madison was not lying. It was just a tiny bit of land surrounded by backyards and a walking path. The land that I seemed to control was mostly weeds facing the lake. There were also large signs that warned against swimming and fishing. I had 2 tall trees that hung over the lake like weeping willows. The Elite Four who will be coming here to accept your oath will inform you of any stipends or value of the land. However, I feel it isn't very much. The last person to hold the position was Kevin Cooper, and that was so long ago, Madison told me. She had remained quite calm through the entire day, and her simple behavior reminded me of a watchful sprite or fairy. Kevin was a suck-up and spent most of his time in the capital pandering to the old queen. He barely spent any time here, which would explain the derelict situation. No one had control of it after my cousin left? I asked. No, the lordship was dissolved and this part of the meadow was actually forgotten about, the Duchess replied, a hint of sorrow in her voice. At least having the title gives you permission to attend galas and parties held at Emperor's Perch. You are a member of the nobility now, and are actually richer than many of the landless aristocrats that hang out in the castle. Thank you for your encouraging words, I said with a warm smile. Now please, enlighten me on who the Elite Four are, if they are not powerful Pokemon trainers. Madison went into great detail describing these famed Elite Four. As the name would imply, there were 4 of them. They were all skilled fighters, part of an order that the Emperor himself had created. All members studied and mastered the dragon arts. He had chosen them for their skill, their intelligence, and their abilities. However, they were not noble or royal. These Elite Four were simply warriors, part of an elite guard that served and protected the Emperor. "Think of the Swiss Guard and the Pope," she told me. I nodded. It made complete sense. Each of the Elite Four wore samurai armor like the Emperor. However, they were quite noticeable and recognized by all the kids in the meadow. "Do you know their names?" I asked. Madison nodded. "I do, but they usually go by a moniker instead of their real names. It is also against the law to address them by their given names. You must call them by their title." "Well, that is good enough to remember," I said. "Their names are not complicated, are they?" The Duchess shook her head. "Let me tell you. Tigress is the first of the four. She is also the only girl. Her real name is Roberta Summers. She was said to have dated the Emperor long before he ascended the throne. She is also the most cunning. Tigress was also the first of the order, the first to be chosen. Her samurai armor is red. Secondly, we have Mantis. His real name is Timothy Graves, and he is in the same class as myself. Older he is, but the strongest of the bunch. His armor is green. Third, we have Fox, and he is very fast. Skilled with a chain whip, his real name is Jordan Riley. He is the skinniest and by far the cutest. His armor is the most noticeable shade of emoji yellow. Lastly, and certainly not least, we have Crane. Crane is a balanced fighter with both skill and strength. His real name is Dakota House, and has the same gym class as the Emperor, so it is told. His armor is blue. The Elite Four and the Dragon Emperor cooperated together to assault the meadow. They took over together. All I could do was nod. These Elite Four seemed quite the formidable foes, and strangely assumed an ancient Chinese influence. It reminded me of some ancient kung fu order. The Dragon Emperor had come across more powerful than I had imagined, especially knowing that he was protected by the strongest kids on the block. "Which one will come for me?" I asked. "I have no idea. It could be any of them," she replied. "I will be ready," I said, clenching my fists happily. That concludes Chapter 2 of The Tale of the Cloverleaf Lord. I hope you're enjoying the novels so far. Join me next week when we tackle Chapter 3 entitled An Earthly Encounter. Please enjoy your week. Dragon Boats by Fass is the music used during this novel on the podcast. Find us online on Facebook and Instagram by searching @Everglade Chronicles. You can find all 3 of the Everglade Chronicles novels exclusively on Amazon. Thank you kindly for your support.